After I killed Ra's al Ghul in front of everyone, after what Ra's al Ghul did, the entire clan of the League of Shadows respected me. Even David Kane respected me and fell in line. After witnessing my extraordinary powers, he knew he couldn't challenge me now. Not even the Soul Crusher sword could kill me, and then in an instant I repaired the Soul Crusher sword, and I said, fascinating, this sword has the powers to kill a person's soul and even reap it, and it feels like it came from a reaper. And I said, David Kane, come here right now. And he said, yes sir, this blade is yours. And he said, I am honored sir. And I said, Talia and Nissa are in charge now when I'm not around. You do as they say. Furthermore, I want to establish a new faction of the League of Shadows in the criminal underworld, and we will call it the Continental, and you will call me the Emperor. And he said, understood sir. And I said, Talia and Nissa, did you get all that? And they both said, yes my king. And I said, please say that again. And they both said, yes my king. And I said, I love it. Hail to the king, baby. I actually said that, by the way. And then Harley Quinn ran up to me and she handed me back the money, and I smiled, said thanks darling, and I put it in my backpack and I said thanks darling. And all the women said, you know where that's been, right? And I said, yes I know where it's been, and it's not that big of a deal, and I don't give a damn where it's been, but it was inside a beautiful bud, I'll say that much. And they said okay, and Harley Quinn smiled and waved, and I said, now if all of you don't mind, I have learned everything I need to know from Ra's al Ghul and David Kane, and right now I want to go to my private chambers and rest. And then me and Harley Quinn went to the private bedchambers, and I made love to Harley Quinn for almost 2 months, and I also made sure she had plenty of food and everything so I could take care of our babies. Harley could be fed along with all the other women. I got pregnant, and then after nearly a year they all went into labor, and I took care of the children. I even circumcised my little baby boys without. I used precision Hakai energy blasts on their genitals because I didn't want to touch them there. It just feels inappropriate to do that to a baby boy, and the best part, no risk of infection since I just erased the skin. It's harmless pretty much, and if you master key energy it's actually easier than you think, and even better than a scalpel. Besides, I don't want my baby boys to cry out in pain, so everything was fine, and I delivered all the babies, even Harley's unique looking babies. And I said, your babies are very unique, Harley Quinn. And she said, they are beautiful. And I said, yes darling, they are, and so are you. You and my son and my daughter both have their mother's hair, which I always thought was very unique. And I kissed Harley's children first, and the other women didn't see that, and then I held the rest of our babies, and I smiled at Harley Quinn, and I said, there's a lot of children now, and my mother and father are going to be very proud of me, I suppose. And Harley Quinn said, your dad is kind of a jerk. And a League of Shadows ninja said, how dare you winch speak to our emperor that way? And then I powered up a Hakai energy blast and I pointed it at the ninja that said that. Then I said, say that again soldier, and he said, sorry sir. And I said, you apologize to her, not me. And he said, I am sorry Miss Quinn ma'am. And she said, that's alright, don't let it happen again sugar, or someone is getting erased. And said yes. And I said, you can say that anyone else except for the women I love and care about. No one else has the privilege to down to me except for the people I love. You may punish the other people that are insolent, but not my friends and not my family, especially the woman I love. Are we clear soldiers? And they all said yes sir. And I stood up and said, are we clear? And they all said yes sir. And I said, good, because believe me, none of you want to see me in my true form. You just might piss your pants. And like Majin Buu, I can shapeshift into that terrifying bat monster that looks like a demon from hell. I can transform into a big giant muscular bat with red glowing eyes, the Darkest Night in his true terrifying form. And then I said, let me show you all why they call me the Darkest Night. And then I transformed into a giant muscular black bat, half man half bat, and I stood 13 feet tall, and I terrified all the ninjas present. I didn't want to show you all this form, so this is me telling you, you all better be on your best behavior around my loved ones or else you get the bat, understand? And they all said yes sir. And Harley Quinn smiled and she said, wow, big monster. And then I transformed back into a man, and then I heard from one of my ninjas that Gotham City is being attacked by a man calling himself the Joker, and I said interesting. And they also said Metropolis is also being attacked by aliens calling themselves the Kryptonians.